All right, let's talk about Eagles trade rumours and contract stuff and the listings and a little bit of a list management thing. I don't know how often I'll do this. It just feels like every now and then there's a new thing to discuss in this space. So we're going to cover off the Eagles meeting with Liam Baker and Shea Bolton. So I literally sat down to do this video. I've got a little script here. It's all prepared. I opened up my phone and just saw for the first time the Eagles apparently met with Shea Bolton. In addition to Liam Baker. So I didn't prepare for that at all. But we're going to cover that. We're going to talk a little bit about Tom Barrass, Elliot Yeo, some contract extensions the Eagles have made this week, and who might get delisted at the end of the year, and just kind of forecast what might happen, because I think this is probably, I could be wrong, but it feels like it might be one of the most difficult to predict Eagles off seasons I've ever seen, or at least seen in a long time, because I've been saying for a little bit, Pike and the club sort of forecasted the things we're hearing. It's kind of forecasted this aggressive off-season. I'm looking at, our contract situation, who's out of contract, how many list spots we have, and it's hard to see wiggle room. So anyway, we're going to get into all of that. Let's start with the fact that the Eagles have met with Liam Baker and then Shea Bolton. So first of all, this Liam Baker thing to WA seems like the worst kept secret in the world at the moment. I don't think it's fake news at all. I think Liam Baker is coming back to Western Australia, and if you believe what's been reported, he's gonna come to us. It sounds like we're very interested. This is not a bad move in terms of the player that he is, his age profile, what he brings to us. The icky part of it is just that he's not a free agent, which means we'd have to trade for him. The collateral we currently have is picks 3 and 23. I imagine 23 doesn't get it done. 3, absolutely no way, should be on the table. Do we trade that pick down, split it to get Liam Baker? I'm not even fully across that. So I know I'm repeating myself, but that is a little bit hard to get my head around. Nonetheless, the update is that we've met with him during the mid-season bye, and I feel like Liam Baker is going to be at West Coast next year. Shea Bolton, a little bit harder to see coming. West Coast have been sort of linked to every Western Australian player to some extent, and I think we've seen a little bit more about Bolton being linked to Fremantle than we have West Coast as such. But in the last few days we've been linked to Logan McDonald, we've been linked to Isaac Cumming, I've seen somewhere, Jack Graham previously earlier this year. Heard a little bit about us offering a little contract to Steely Green. So it seems like we've got fingers in a lot of pies, and I don't know how usual that is. Like, is it West Coast doing unusually aggressive canvassing of players? Or is this completely normal and this happens every year, we just don't hear about it? It's interesting because the amount of players we're potentially linked to, it far exceeds the amount of players we can actually get. So anyway, without labouring on that, specifically Shea Bolton, he's 1 year into a 5-year contract. I reckon he was 2016 draft. That is correct. I just double checked. So same age as Liam Baker. So yeah, ticks the box. Quality absolutely ticks the box. Position, yes and no. Like we've got a few forward mid options. He'd be an outstanding option. It's not as if he's a gaping hole in our list. The other obstacle, absolutely going to cost pick 3 in my opinion. If he's got a 5-year contract, he's 1 year in. Richmond are only going to do it if they get a really good deal for him. That just seems wild if we are willing to do that. Now, yeah, you can make the argument Bolton's probably going to be better than pick 3. Like, statistically, the amount of draft picks that don't turn out, I get that. I just thought for where we're at, to spend pick 3 on an established 25-year-old player would be crazy. So I haven't even fully processed that. And it probably is, there is probably nothing to it. And, Fremantle probably going to have a real crack. It probably makes more sense for them to be aggressive with this. But nonetheless, interesting that we are, putting out the feelers to someone like a Shea Bolton. I didn't see that coming. We'll move on to a little bit of in-house stuff. So Tom Barrass, there has been a little bit of speculation that he's leaving. Not something I've ever bought into. I've been fairly relaxed about this situation. Like I said, the teams he was linked to, the Bulldogs and Collingwood, who do not have enough to offer us to even make us interested in trading him in contract. However, I've seen that it's been reported, and I got this from the Instagram page, WCE Central, by the way. So great Instagram page for Eagles fans to follow. That's pretty much where I get my news first now, so go check him out. Anyway, it's been reported somewhere that he's actually seeking a 2-year extension on his existing contract. Now, Tom Barrass comes out of contract at the end of 2027. He will be 32 at the end of that season. If he extends for 2 years, he will be 34 by the time he comes out of contract. And the reasoning that we've read is that reportedly there's an agreement with West Coast that he would be later compensated for the salary cap, reducing his current salary. Does that make sense? So the Eagles basically said, okay, we'll pay you a little bit less now, but we will give you a longer contract and smooth it out later, and you'll get a contract to your 34. It's been reported that's apparently an agreement that we made. It's also reported that we have a new list management team, which we already knew, who are kind of stalling this. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Now, I'm all for player loyalty and looking after players, and yeah, okay, we gave Gov and Cripps 2 years each. That seemed a little bit out of character for us. We've given Yo 3 years. That's also quite generous considering all of these guys are over 30. Contracting Tom Barras to 34 to the end of 2029 seems very bold. Not sure how I feel about it. Like I said, I like the idea of player loyalty and stuff, but this one seems a little bit odd for me, and I'll reserve my outrage for the time that it actually happens. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But we have done the same thing with Elliot Yo. Again, Yo is the sort of guy I'd like to have around for at least another 2 years. I know he's got soft tissue injury history, and maybe that will see his decline over a few years, but I think in terms of what he adds to us as a leader, I see the value in that, even if, the third year is something that I probably wouldn't have expected. But other than that, we have recently extended Clay Hall for a third year. So he was contracted for 2 years initially upon drafting, which means the end of 2025, he comes out of contract. That's been extended to the end of 26. Same thing with Harvey Johnson. They've done the exact same thing, end of 2026. Just sees these guys get a little bit of a pay bump, gives them a little bit of time to relax and focus on their development and not worry about earning another contract in their second season. That makes sense. You'd imagine that Harvey and Clay would have been at least a 3-year investment for us. So yeah, interesting to see both of those guys rewarded. Tyrell Dewar as well has been given a 1-year extension. Now, as far as I can tell, that doesn't come with a promotion from the rookie list. He's been given another 1-year deal. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I'd imagine he is still on the rookie list, and that's important because we're going to talk about players out of contract, how many list spots we have, and how we can potentially make all of these deals. So for anyone not fully across it, right? You have your main list, you have your rookie list, and there is a minimum 3 list changes you have to make to the main list at the end of the season. Those restrictions do not apply to the rookie list. You could, in theory, take no rookie list selections. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that is the case. You've got to take at least 3 draft picks at the draft. However, you can use a rookie upgrade to satisfy one of those draft picks. I think you have to take at least 1 live selection. Maybe it's 2. I don't think I've ever seen a team take just 1, so I think maybe it's the minimum of 2. So either way, for where we're at, you'd imagine we want to be looking at this draft and ideally take 4 selections. 3 seems light. It's possible. We don't hold a 3rd round selection this year. We currently hold 3, 23, 59, and 77. We traded our 3rd rounder for Clay Hall last year. I'd imagine we want to be taking minimum 3 kids. Now, the only way to justify only taking 3 is if we've landed at least 1 or 2 free agents or a trade or something like that. Either way, we need list turnover. That's where we're at the moment, and we have a bit of dead wood. So let's talk about the guys who are out of contract specifically on the main list. Now, this is relevant. This is where it gets a little bit iffy. So we have 8 players out of contract at the end of this season. Harry Edwards, Liam Duggan still unsigned, Alex Witherden, Kobe Burgiel, Andrew Gaff, Jermaine Jones, Josh Rotham, and Luke Edwards. So let's say our conservative goal is to take those 4 selections, 3, 23, 59, 77, and get Liam Baker onto the list, and that will make 5 list changes. The other elephant in the room is that we've got Jai Cully still on the rookie list. Now, we could extend Jai Cully for 1 more year on the rookie list. I think we're still able to do that because I think he will have been on the rookie list for 2.5 years, and as a mid-season draftee, I'm not sure of what the rules are around that, if we have to put him on the main list. Regardless, those are the options we have. So let's say, we want to upgrade Jai Cully to a main list position. That counts as one of our main list spots. So then you have Jai Cully being upgraded, you have Liam Baker being added to the list. That becomes 3 selections, and we have to cut 5 of those 8 players. So Liam Duggan is going to get another contract. So we can tick him off the list of players that definitely won't get delisted. So let's say we want to keep 3 of the players, and we've got Liam Duggan there. I'd probably be looking at Harry Edwards. I think with the state of our key back stocks, I know he hasn't forced his way properly into the side yet this year. We've had a pretty good run with TB and McGovern, to be fair. So I think for where he's at in his development, I'm not really willing to discard the investment we've put into him. So I'd probably give him a 1-year deal, bearing in mind, he's probably going to have some interest from opposition teams. I think Sydney was sniffing around last year. I would probably prioritise Harry Edwards. And I think Witherden, who has been best 22 this whole year, basically, I don't think he's been dropped. You'd imagine he gets another year. So then there's question marks on Andrew Gaff. Now, Andrew Gaff, you can almost certainly rule out. Like, he's not going to get another contract. You can tell. You can just tell. Luke Edwards, I think, would be incredibly lucky to earn another contract. I don't think he's done enough. And at 22, he's just shit out of luck that he's out of contract. And I do think the same applies to Jermaine Jones. I think if you're 25 and not established in the 22 and you're out of contract and your team needs to make list spaces, you're probably Gornsky. Josh Rotham is probably another iffy one for me. Now, I don't think he's necessarily a high priority to re-sign, and he's been in and out of the team. But again, out of contract, and we need the list spots. And between him and Kobe Bergiel, I don't know where the opinion and the mood at West Coast sits on Kobe Bergiel. I'm not necessarily willing to give him up, but he doesn't seem particularly close to the team. We've got depth in that position for a start. He's never been named as an emergency. He has been decent in the waffle. We've only put 2 years into him, and he did have most of his first year ruined by injury. So there is a chance we give Bergiel a spot on the list next year. We do have the option of offering any of these guys a spot on the rookie list. So if it's up to me, I'm probably re-signing Harry, Liam Duggan, and probably Witherden on a 1-year deal. And I would probably offer Bergiel a year on the rookie list. He hasn't gotten quite close enough to justify the main list spots. Probably not going to get contract offers from anywhere else. That means we cut Gaff, Jones, Rotham, and Luke Edwards. The other unfortunate thing about the players that I've just discarded there is there's a lot of halfback flankers in that. Okay, like Rotham and Jermaine Jones, Bergiel, and Witherden, who I have admittedly kept on. It's still a bit of a cut to the depth. Does Liam Baker come in and play off the halfback flank? That probably helps, right? But it's probably also highlighting a need to add depth in this position through the draft. So what I've just done there is make 5 list spots. We still have to get a deal done for Liam Baker. And I would ideally like to explore the possibility of Cully staying on the rookie list. I don't know what pay rise he can get on the rookie list. Not 100% sure what the rules are there. I'd imagine you can still give him a pay rise and keep him on the rookie list. That gives us 3 selections in the draft. And, the other thing that I haven't even done yet is give up anything for Liam Baker. Does 23 get it done? I'm skeptical because 23 will probably become mid to late 20s. Is Richmond going to accept that? Technically, they have to accept what they're given, but it's just not in our nature to screw over a team. Do we give a future second round pick? Do we split 3 down and make it, say, 8 and 15 or something like equivalent to the Jinby and Hewitt deal we did a few years ago? Do we give 15 to Richmond for Liam Baker and we get like a 4th rounder back? That would give us 10, 23, 59, and whatever. That would make our first 3 picks like 10, 23, and 59. And it's not the strongest draft hand, but that's kind of the cost of going for an established player like Liam Baker. This is the opportunity cost that we give up. It's a little bit hard to see at this stage how we get Liam Baker onto our list and don't give up pick 3 in some way, shape, or form and don't split the pick. It's not my preference. I'm holding out for someone like a Finn O'Sullivan. I really like to invest in the best midfielder we can get at the moment, someone with a bit of run and carry for a start. For the record as well, I have talked about wanting us to go for Jed Buslinger, and I'm hoping that is still the case, even if there's not too much noise about it at the moment. But let's say Jed Buslinger comes across for a future second round pick. That probably spells the end for Harry Edwards. Before we finish off, I will just run you through the rookie list out of contract players. So like I said, there's no expectation on us to take a certain amount of picks and we can do what we want with these players. But the players out of contract are Jai Cully, hence why he either needs to get a rookie list extension or an upgrade to the main list. I suppose it kind of hinges on the second half of his year. Then you got Jordan Baker. Again, I'd be surprised if he gets another year. He hasn't really done a whole lot whilst also not being bad and developing at an acceptable pace. But I really just don't know how much they rate Jordan Baker. Locke Rawlinson, pick 1 in the rookie draft. He will be out of contract. I'd like to see him, invested in and given another year. I think if you earn a debut early and you're a skinny player who needs a bit of size to play that pressure tackling role that he does, I'd like to see him given another year. Zane True will be out of contract. I'd imagine he's probably done. Through not too much fault of his own. I think he's, worked really hard and made a really good account of himself and probably should have been given more exposure at AFL level. But I just get the sense that they don't think he is AFL standard. I think they might think he's a very good waffle player. Just my impression based on the way we've used them versus someone like a Chesser who we've invested in without necessarily earning it. And that's not meant to be a shot on Chesser. That's just a reality. We've exposed him before he necessarily earned it. And sometimes that's the right way to go. Finally, Colin Livingston will also be out of contract again as a project tour. I'd imagine he gets another contract, hasn't really put a foot wrong and looked pretty good in the preseason game for us and has been decent at waffle level. So that's just covering off all the list spot stuff that we have at the moment and some of the options out there. And you can see why. Hopefully you understood that and followed it. I don't mean to be condescending. I just don't know how well I presented that. But you might be able to see from watching that our ability to get all these guys in and maintain our desire to get top draft picks into this list, to try and do both at the same time is going to be tricky without having to make some sort of crazy call. Now, I'm sure you could throw up some suggestions like trade some of our contracted players. We can't do that from a position of strength. Like we have to talk the player into leaving. It's not in our nature. We have a very strict culture around this sort of stuff, you can tell. Thirdly, you've got to get a team to try and buy Jack Darling or trade for Dom Sheed or whatever it is that might be suggested. It is possible, but something that's a little bit hard to speculate on this far out. Anyway, guys, hope that word vomit made sense. That's just a snapshot of where we're at as a list at the moment, and the changes we can expect and what some of our options are, and it'll be intriguing to see. We've talked a bit of a game about being aggressive, and if we're going for a Liam Baker and potentially a Shea Bolton, but let's say Liam Baker is probably the one that's going to happen, then at least we're not sitting on our hands. I just don't want to compromise the important task right now of also getting in the top draft talent, because as we rise up the ladder, we're going to have decreasing opportunities to get a top 3 midfielder in the draft onto our list. So we'll see what happens, but for now, look forward to hearing from you in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.